Right, so this is not Dave's talk. Dave, unfortunately, has... I don't want to say man flu, but it is man flu. He's basically just being a pussy. So that's not the talk title. This is the talk title. I apologise for the font, but I like it. Basically, this is Becoming Boba Fett, Hacking Companies for Internet Glory While Not Dying in a Sacklit Pit, a.k.a. How I Killed Dave. So this probably should have been the first slide. I'm Scottish and I swear a lot. If you get offended, that's your fucking problem, basically. There might be strong bloody violence. I don't have any drumsticks this time. If I was in my talk this morning, I chucked a drumstick that got somebody in the eye, so that's bloody violence. Anyway, for those of you who don't know already, I'm Andy Gill. I'm a penetration tester. It's a sexy title at Pentest Partners. We break shit and write reports. I've been in security now for about 8 years, and I've been in IT for the last 10, so I'm pretty old for a young guy. I also wrote a book about pen testing. It's Learning the Ropes 101. It's not about bondage. If you do Google that, some dodgy stuff does come up. I can assure you it's not that. I've been described as a hacker, a writer, because apparently my book is, people can read it. I'm a researcher, because I do research and shit. A speaker, because I'm up here talking shit to you guys. And now, a lecturer! Yay! Some college in Glasgow have trusted me to teach students about security. I mean, who knows? But I'm teaching a web apps fundamentals and pen testing fundamentals course that started last week, and it's gonna for the foreseeable future. That's tied into what ZephyrSec is on Twitter. It's a secret, but yeah, I'm going to announce it at some point. Also a high school failure, so I fucked up everything at school, but that doesn't really matter. Thanks for being here. You made it to BSides Leeds. You've not been stabbed, murdered, or kidnapped. Thanks to Dave for handing the torch over and being ill, because it means I get to talk. And thanks to BSides Leeds for telling me at 6 o'clock last night, by the way, you're doing another talk tomorrow. I'm like, great! I've got a couple of hours to write slides. Luckily, this is I wouldn't say a recycled talk, but it's an augmentation of a talk I delivered at an internal conference for PTP. So it's just been made a bit more safe for human consumption, because we're all reprobates at PTP. Anyway, so about me, 90% of the time I do this stuff. I park up in cars and hack Wi-Fi and shit. And then the other kind of 45% of the time I sit behind a screen with lots of terminal windows up, reading man pages because I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. And then the other 10% of the time, anyone who follows me on Twitter, I do this. I drive in this blue machine. Has anyone heard I've got a blue car? I kind of go on about it all the time. It's great. I've now had it for about a year, done 20,000 miles, so it's a lot. And I love taking pictures of it because, yeah. I also get quite thoroughly involved in the community. So I've written a book. That's the full title. That's the subtitle. It's not free to download anymore because the publisher went to me, basically, too many people are downloading for free. We're not making any money. Can you charge some money for it? So I went, okay, it's going to be $5. So it's $5. If you want a free copy and you're skint, let me know and I'll give you a free copy. I also run a blog that's got various write-ups about bug bounty stuff, pen testing, just general bits and pieces, automating home networks, that sort of thing. And I also run my local DEF CON chapter, which is actually what t-shirt I've got on today. Somebody made me this t-shirt. This is DC 44141, which, for anyone who doesn't know, 44 is the UK calling number, and 141 is the local area landline for Glasgow. 0141 is the landline. So if anyone's fishing, Glasgow 0141 is the best number to kind of prefix things with. Anyone who's interested, we're always looking for speakers, so we're the first Tuesday of every month. We won't fund travel, but Glasgow's a good fun place, so it's only 5 hours on the train from here. Feel free to boost up and have some fun. Click this disclaimer. There's people in the room who are very much smarter than me. I just found some holes on a website once and ended up getting into bug bounties. For people who can't see the back, that's Pornhub. Yeah, it's kind of in the name. They do porn and stuff. So the talk plan, I am rattling through this, but anyway, the talk plan is kind of, too long didn't read bug bounties in a nutshell. There are other talks today, I've realised. Basically, I didn't submit this talk, I submitted another one, didn't have it prepared, so I wrote this one instead. And there's other people who have done talks today about bug bounties, so if you've been to that, this might be a repeat of it, but people like this. Oh, I've got people lying on the phone, I've just noticed. You comfy down there? Yeah. So this is going to be a kind of overview. Going to look at the techniques used in bug bounties and how they can be adapted for pen testing and vice versa. The benefits of bug bounties is not just silly money, but there is a lot of that too. There's people who get ridiculous payments. The differences from pen testing, there's a lot of platforms that both BugCrowd and HackerOne are sponsoring this conference. Try not to offend them too much, but they're trying to basically replace pen testing. It's not, yeah, it's not a replacement, in my opinion. Anyway, Bug Bounties 101, the 5 W's plus H. Anyone who's done forensics or incident response will know the 5 W's plus H. What, where, who, why, all them, basically. So, Bug Bounties, for anyone who doesn't know, is essentially companies letting you legally hack their systems with a scope. It's similar to a pen test in the sense that you have a scope, but different in the sense that they have the right to turn and go, well, we're not going to pay any money because we know about it, or if someone's found it before you, or we don't think it's an issue. So I'll talk about kind of the issues with bug bounty fines. Oh, this guy's bored already. He's like, fuck this, I'm off.
Not to use fraud, sorry guys.
Oh well, yeah, so basically companies can kind of pick and choose to an extent what they think is a bug, what they think is an issue, and yeah, it's different from pen testing. They work in the way that you write a report, so you find a bug, say for example SQL injection on a website, you can dump, even if you can't dump records, even if it's just information disclosure or something similar, you can submit it, and then the company, either the platform will act as like a middleman or middle woman or middle human, gender diversity and that stuff. Yeah, fuck it. So I need to cut that out at some point, 'cause, yeah, anyway. They're the middle triage. They triage it, and they'll either on the spot decide if it's a bug or not, or they'll try and revalidate it. So a lot of the time, sometimes you get triagers who are maybe not as technically well versed. So they'll mark a bug as it's not an issue, and then you go back to them and go, well, actually, no, this is an issue because it affects the business logic here, or this is XSS, but XSS being cross-site scripting. But it's only, in their opinion, it's only only affects you. It's like, yeah, you could use it to bypass authentication or do something similar. So that can be a problem, but they work in the way that you submit the bug, it gets triaged, all going well, company gets the bug, they fix it internally. Good companies will fix them quickly, bad companies will not fix them quickly. I've got bugs that have been open for the last 3 years, pretty serious ones in that matter. So yeah, once they fix it, all going well, they'll pay you some money. However, some companies think it's fine, to give you a t-shirt because you found remote code execution. Because who doesn't like t-shirts? And t-shirts pay the bills, right? You can pay the bills with reputation and kudos. That's how that works. So Sony's a perfect example. There's lots of other big companies like Adobe are also similar to that. There's also, I don't know if Sean's here today. Has Sean made it down? Is he Sean?
Yeah, he's here.
Is he, Sean?
He's on his way. He's just
Anyway, Sean did a blog post about bug bounty programs and how some companies have what's called a VIP program and a public program. Public program pays you in reputation, so you get internet points for finding bugs. The private program pays you money. But they were being quite decisive on, we'll only pick people that we like to go in our private bugs, so we don't need to pay you money. So if you find, like RCE, for example, and they don't like the look of you, they'll give you some internet points, but no money, because they feel like it. So go away and read his blog about that. It's really in-depth, and it's actually really interesting. It has caused a bit of, I want to say, a kind of tidal wave in the kind of bug bounty sphere, because people get offended, but everyone gets offended. It's just how you choose to be offended. That's my kind of opinion on things. So that's how they work. Why do them? Well, there are ridiculous sums of money in bug bounties, particularly when you find pretty high risk issues. So one of my mates who I do stuff with, he found a bug in a consumer management platform that was basically SQL injection. You could dump client information. That company gave him $20,000 for that. So that's quite big money. You wouldn't get that from like contracting it. You'd need to do like 100 days contracting or more to do that. So that's you a couple hours work. But also they're quite beneficial from an education perspective, because I'll talk about it later on. You get to see some systems that you might not normally get to see in pen testing. Now, typically speaking, obviously pen testing depends on who your clients are, so that depends what systems you get to work on. But on bug bounties, you're not defined by the client base as such. You're defined it by what programs you're involved with and what things you get to test on and see. So there's some interesting things I've seen over the time. And also, like, kind of getting involved with the community, I'd say the kind of two industries in offensive security that move forward the quickest is bug bounty and red teaming. They're the two where like techniques and tools and stuff are released on a daily, even hourly basis. I mean, there are other areas like hardware and things where there's a lot going on, but they're the two that I see on Twitter all the time. Like if you just search hashtag bug bounty, there's fucking thousands of tweets of just new tools, new techniques and things, and it's changing all the time. So something that was up to date yesterday will be burnt. Same as red teaming, it's finding new tools, techniques, and procedures. So that sort of covers why do them, but then you look, where can you do them? So there's lots of kind of platforms. In the talk this morning with the beer farmers, we covered off the kind of 4 main platforms. There's HackerOne, Bug Crowds, these guys are sponsoring the conference. There's Sarlacc, which is private and invite only, and they've kind of, they're met to vet who they bring on their platform because they've got quite exclusive things like the US Department of Defense, and it's a paid program versus HackerOne, which is a non-paid program. You've also got Cobalt, which is more like pen testing as a service, but still bug bounties. So essentially you get paid, like, you do 2 weeks work and they'll give you $2,000, whether you find stuff or not. Similar to the way that pen testing works, but it can be easy money. So it's similar to contracting. So they're the kind of for one. There are other ones. There's also one that's launched in the EU called Integrity, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah. They pay quite big bucks as well. There's been a European directive that's been put in place where a lot of open source software is now on that platform, and they will pay you for finding bugs. So if you're fuzzing like libc, for example, and you find bugs, they'll pay you money for it. Similar things with like VLC and other bits and pieces. So there's lots of open source stuff on there. They've also big banks, Ing Bank, so ING, have just launched a program on integrity, and they pay maximum things like €20,000, which at the current state of affairs is about £20,000 or more. So yeah, it pays pretty well. So they're the kind of main platforms. They're all free to sign up for as well, which is a big benefit because obviously you're essentially getting something for nothing. Well, you're doing work, but you're getting paid for it, so it's pretty good. But then who does them? Basically anyone. Anyone who's interested in security, kind of offensive security, can do bug bounties. I'm not necessarily saying you'll be successful in doing them, but you can try, and you can, even if you don't get any monetary payback, you probably learn something. So a lot of things that I've learned from doing bug bounties I've fed back into my kind of day job, pen testing. In particular, I write a lot about, I've written 3 or 4 blog posts about XXE, so external XML entity injection, basically fuzzing API SOAP interfaces and getting files back and things like that. And I've been able to use it in pen tests, but it's paid pretty well in bug bounty. So that using that technique and building tools off the back of that's been pretty useful. So the other thing is, when do you do them? Well, for some people, they do it full time. I know a few guys that's all they do. That's their only source of income, and it pays pretty well. There's guys that I know that, like, there's a guy in the States called Doggy G, which is his handle, and he's made $500,000 in a year. A lot of money. You wouldn't make that normally as a pen tester. You'd maybe struggle to make it as a business. So he made that just by doing bug bounties. So it's pretty decent. When do you do them? Well, you can, if you're full time, you might get into the cycle that I got into, so burning the candle at both ends, essentially. Doing your day job, but then doing research from like 6 till 6 or whenever. You don't have to, but the more time you put in, the more rewarding it can be, but then you're based on the programs you're doing on bits and pieces. But anyway, that's the kind of the overview. Then we're talking about the tools, techniques, and procedures. So the tooling that gets released and kind of the procedures that get released, they're the same but different. So the question might be, why is that? They're same in the sense that you still have the scanning, you've still got the recon, you've still got exploitation, but more and more tools are being developed for specific bug classes. So things like SQL map, everyone sort of knows about SQL map. If you don't, it's used for SQL injection. There's specific tools that have been built for specific types of SQL. So someone built a tool a couple of years ago designed for Oracle, and it will fish out not just SQL injection, but it will fish out information disclosure and like Oracle E-Business Suite and middleware and kind of big platforms. There's other tools that are designed for specific things you wouldn't normally see in a pen test. I wouldn't normally exploit in a pen test, because in a pen test, typically speaking, you're constrained by the scope of the client. So if you find, for example, a subdomain takeover, 9 times out of 10 you're not able to exploit it, or you wouldn't be allowed to exploit it because the client might not own the domain. But in a bug bounties perspective, Starbucks are probably one of the bigger companies that this happens to a lot. If you find a DNS record, a CNAME record that has whatever.domain.com and it's pointing to like CloudFront, which is on Amazon, you can claim that CloudFront domain and post your own content. Now, from a malicious perspective, you can leverage that for things like watering hole attacks, so posting malicious content. You can leverage it for phishing, so you could set up point it to your domain, set up MX records, and essentially email from that domain. So there's lots of things you can do with it. But in a pen test, you might see, oh yeah, it's vulnerable to a subdomain takeover, but you're not going to exploit it because one, it's either out of scope, or 2, the client might not own it. So that's the kind of the crossover. Other things like asset identification, you don't really see it in pen testing as much. This is like going really deep in recon. You do see it in things like red teams where you've got like 30, 40 man days to go and do the engagement, and 10 of those days will be for intelligence gathering. But in bug bounties, like asset identification and recon, that's the kind of meat and potatoes. That's the main thing you want to do, because the more recon you do, the more kind of external footprint you can find from an organisation, and the more kind of juicy things you can look at. Like using things like the Wayback Machine. Anyone who doesn't know the Wayback Machine, basically you can go back in time and look at domains and things that have been owned by companies and look at what they were like 5 years ago or 10 years ago or even further back. And I've found things with, basically you can, there's tools out there, Wayback URLs written by, well, basically Tom, who did a workshop this morning. You can feed it a list of URLs. It'll go away to the Wayback Machine, query it and find like paths of what might have been leftover apps. So I've used that in the past to find like PHP MyAdmin interfaces on old domains, but the thing being that the domain might no longer be tied to the company, but they'll still own the IP. So they've taken the host name off, but the IP still belongs to the company. You go to the IP/PHP MyAdmin and boom, you're in admin. Now, in some platforms, that's an easy high risk. So like $1,000, $2,000. I've had a few that have been like $1,500 just for like 10 minutes work. But by doing recon, it pays. Hacking pays. Crime pays, but crime's bad. Don't do crime. So breaking stuff responsibly is kind of what falls into bug bounty. It falls into pen testing as well. Obviously, you don't want to bring a production system down if you can help it. But at the same time, in a bug bounty perspective, if you can prove a risk to the client, so say with the client, if you can prove a risk to the program being, right, I found a cross-site scripting here, and the client goes, oh, that's a low risk. It's like, no, but I can use this to change everyone's password. So that's chaining bugs together and responsibly telling them, right, it's a problem. I'm not going to exploit it because that might lock all your users out, but this is what you could potentially do. So by taking that mentality and applying it, well, you can get one, a good payout, and two, you can make the business more aware and hopefully more secure. Now, there are the arguments from that perspective, or the business goes, yeah, I don't fucking care, that's a low risk, there's $100, where in actual fact it's a high risk, or maybe even a critical, depending on what the company do. So, the other problem you have with pen testing is, I've mentioned earlier on, is keeping in scope. Now, arguably speaking, you should probably keep in scope when you're doing bug bounties, but sometimes the coolest bugs you find are out of scope, and sometimes, if it's high risk enough, companies will consider it. Now, I'm not advising going out of scope, it's not a good idea, but sometimes, like, just going that little bit further and finding something and chaining it together will get the payout and actually protect the business, prevent things like data breaches. I'm not saying that bug bounties prevent data breaches, but they certainly aid companies in finding things they wouldn't normally discover in their annual compliance-based pen test, where you've got 2 days to look at an app. That's the other difference between bug bounties and pen testing, is that in essence, a bug bounty is like continual testing, whereas pen testing is that period in time and that only. But that's another talk entirely, because I could go on about it for weeks, maybe not weeks, but ages. The other thing is the techniques. So I've talked about recon. Enumeration is, once you've done your recon, you start to enumerate through everything. So you find all your URLs, you start to enumerate your paths, you start to look at IPs. I tend to, when I'm doing my recon, I'll look at the company, find the IP blocks they own, then do an Mmap scan of just the top 100 ports to see what's sitting there. And then I'll run other tools to go and screenshot web apps. So if they've got things running on port 8080 or 8443 or like other things, I've also written one-liners that will go away and send, like use Netcat to send packets to individual ports. There was probably the best paying bug out of Pornhub was I found a staging server that they owned that had Memcache open, which is it's basically a service used for caching stuff. At the time when I found it, I didn't know what it did, but I went away and read the docs and went, oh shit, this is pretty serious. So I submitted to them, they were like, right, cool, there's $50. I was like, hold on a second, that's shit. Like that I can literally wipe everything off your staging server by compromising Memcache. 8 months later, they went, oh yeah, we made a mistake, here's $2,450. So it was a $2,500 payout. And I was like, sweet, I'm buying a car. So I bought a car. Not the one I've got at the moment. I bought a previous car with that, but it was pretty decent. It's nice when companies do it. Companies don't always do that, but it is nice. But the aspect of that is, in bug bounties, you have more, well, arguably speaking, you have more external opponents than you would do in a pen test. Not always the case. Sometimes you find a shell in a pen test, you trigger it, you get internal network and bits and pieces. But a bug I find a lot is server-side request forgery, and leveraging that to get a shell on an internal network can be so much fun. You basically find an app that's responding to something or another, and you can send commands to the internal system, so you can use that to internally scan servers. So taking your recon and putting it back into the ponies, so you pop server-side request forgery, you go back to recon, you start to scan the internal network, find what there is. Now, this is down to scope. I wouldn't go too far, because there's people in the past who have been absolutely burned from this. They've gone too far, company's gone, right, we're fucking suing you, you found sensitive data, blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, tread carefully, and it depends who you're going after. If you're finding bugs in the US government, I wouldn't recommend going too deep, because they don't like it. I don't know why, they just don't. And then the other difference between pen test and bug bounties is reporting. Typically speaking, in a pen test, you write a report that's average 30 pages, 40 pages, big one, maybe 100 pages. In a bug bounty, you're not writing masses, you're maybe writing 2 or 3 pages tops. You're writing the core impact, you're writing the recommendation, not always, but most of the time you're writing the recommendation, and you're writing the effective areas. But the biggest point you're writing, and I see it lacking in a lot of pen test reports, is the steps to reproduce. Because it might not be important, like if your recommendation in a pen test report is good enough, the client should be able to reproduce anyway. But in a bug bounty, it's how you're getting paid. If you've not got good steps to reproduce, you're getting fuck all from the company. They're not going to pay you anything. Because they're like, oh yeah, I found XSS, here's the link. Most companies go, aye, so fuck, like, whatever. But if you can write this, I found this sword persistent XSS, it's on this page, this is how you access it, this is where you enter, then they're more likely to go, right, cool, this person knows what they're talking about. They haven't just pointed a tool at it, they haven't just pulled it out, they sort of know, they've got an idea. So that's the kind of reporting aspect of things. You can then, the techniques, procedures, a lot more stuff in bug bounty I've seen has been automated. So people are writing frameworks that go away and they scan things, they scan Shodan, they do open source intelligence gathering, and they kind of give you a thing back, and then it'll go through the whole recon information and ponish to the point of they're not publicly available. There's some people that I know that have written tools that are one-click ponish, so it will go away, scan the host, find the things, pop the easy hanging fruit, and then write your report, and then you just go, boom, found 10 issues overnight. I think Rob's got a tool that does similar stuff for his own personal consumption. But
yeah, I think last night was 15,000% scripted.
Well, there you go. So automating the low-hanging fruits, the fun stuff. So I mentioned it earlier, the other benefits in bounties, yeah, you get some cool swag. I've got some cool t-shirts from these guys, but you also get to hack on quite cool systems. So I've done some mainframe stuff in bug bounties, which has been interesting. Having never tested mainframes before, there's people in the room who are older than me who've seen mainframes in pen tests. I haven't, but I got to hack them, and I got to find like real-time bugs, which was quite interesting. Got to hack a system that tracks Apache helicopters, so that was quite fun. I found a bug where you could basically locate where helicopters were and get them to, like, I want a helicopter over there, cool, we'll bring it, we'll land it. So I contacted the program and I went, right, I found this bug. They went, cool, just order a helicopter. I'm like, no, my garden's tiny, I'm not going to fit a helicopter in my garden. So I reported that, and it was a duplicate, unfortunately, but it was pretty cool anyway. I've also got to see, like, ship systems. You see them a lot. You see this sort of stuff in pen testing as well, but it depends on your clients. If you're working with like, the MOD and stuff, you probably get to see ships, you probably get to see planes, maybe you get to see mainframes if you've got like banks and stuff. But the thing you don't get to see is in-flight entertainment systems. Well, some people do, but I was at DEF CON 3 years ago or 4 years ago, and one of the clients there had one of the bug bounty programs had a in-flight entertainment system set up. You could go and hack on it. And then my flight back from Vegas had the same in-flight entertainment system. But I didn't hack it on the plane because I'm not mental. You can't prove anything. So the differences from pen testing, this is the sort of stuff I was harping on a bit earlier on. In pen testing, you find weak SSL. Yep, cool. You tell the client. In a bug bounty, nobody gives a fuck. Like, you've got weak SSL, so fuck. If it's Heartbleed, yeah, cool, you can dump memory. I'm quite interested in that, but as a program, I'd be interested in that. But if you're missing like weak ciphers or medium ciphers, no shit's given. If you're missing content security policy, yeah, cool, we're missing a header, who gives a fuck? However, if you can leverage it to get like cross-site scripting or something, then it's an issue. Auto-complete enabled, yeah, get the fuck out, don't care. Now most browsers mitigate it anyway. And it's about the quickest person first and finding impactful vulnerabilities. So if you're finding these sort of things, fucking rethink your life. in bug bounties, not just in general. You want to be looking for things like remote code execution, server-side request forwarding, stored cross-site scripting, and reflected to an extent, subdomain takeovers, and then looking at the kind of recon, so looking for things like SSH keys. Now, where would I find SSH keys? GitHub. GitHub's a big one. I was going to answer my own question, it was rhetorical. So you've got GitHub, you've got things like Googling things. See if you just Google start private key, or even things like pastebin, you'd be surprised how people just post their public and private keys in the index page of their website. I've seen it done. I don't know why they do it, but they do it. But also leveraging that with things like the Wayback Machine, you can start to look at maybe a company who thinks they've removed things, but they've not reset the keys. So they've taken the keys offline, but they've not changed them. So I found private keys for, what was the company's a payment processing company. Not going to mention them because it's a private program that had SSH private keys to their production payment card terminal system that was on the Wayback Machine that they'd not cycled after they'd taken down. So somebody had obviously spotted like, oh, that's a problem, we should take that down, but they hadn't cycled the keys. So I used the SSH keys to log into the payment card system, to download the internal API documentation, to exploit the API that was public facing, undocumented, and I submitted the report like 4 weeks ago. So they've triaged it and they've gone, holy shit, this is pretty serious. But they haven't given it. I marked it as critical. They've down-marked it to high, but they haven't put a payment on it yet. So it could be quite interesting. But there's money and points to be made, because who doesn't like internet points? Yay! So it's a learning and maturing market. A lot of I want to say platforms like HackerOne and Bugcrowd and to an extent Cynic and probably Cobalt, all four, they're looking to replace pen testing, looking to break that market and be like, right, go into businesses and going, actually, you don't need pen testing every year. We'll do your pen testing because it's a bug bounty. But in actual fact, people like PCI, DSS, they don't like that. You want to have yearly pen testing. You want to have a certified company, because who knows, Billy No Mates might be just running SQL or Nessus or whatever, and that's not doing anything for you. You're not getting the professional knowledge, you're not getting people who are certified. Also, bug bounties, there's no guarantee that you're not going to flip over a system. In pen testing, at least most of the time, you're responsible for what you're doing. You're not just going to run tick equals drop tables, or you might if you're on Muppet, but like, we've all done it at one point in our life, probably, but not on production systems, hopefully. But it's having the understanding that bug bounties aren't pen testing. They don't replace pen testing in the same way that pen testing isn't bug bounties. That a mature organisation should, or I'd encourage them to have both pen testing and a bug bounty platform. Obviously, it depends on what data you're dealing with. You can vet who you've got coming onto your platform, but it means that you've got a more kind of rounded security model, because you're getting your compliance-based testing and maybe even red teaming, but you're also getting like your external perimeter constantly tested. Now, if you're China, you're probably constantly testing things anyway, but you're not telling them about it. So the benefit of having bug bounties is you're having that constant reaction, and you might know about things internally, but being like confirming it with external bodies is good. So that's essentially my talk. I've rattled through it. I did it in 30 minutes because I did start at 5:02, so that's not too bad. Has anyone got any questions? This is how you find me on the internet. I've got a blog, that's my Twitter, and this is my new project, which I'm not disclosing what it does yet, but yeah. Has anyone got any questions?
Where do you get beer?
Question was, where did I get the beer? It's not beer, somebody gave me it. Any other questions? Yes.
So we've got a problem at the moment in the UK. Kids coming through, highly skilled, not being trained by school, so they're kind of learning it on their own. They're getting to college level qual students because the UK education system is knackered. So they're now going off and doing stuff that's into both doing NCA plus projects also you both were. So is bug bounties a way for them to start legitimising what they have knowledge and make useful? Or are we letting kids out there who have got skills, with the Z at the end, out there who can potentially cause damage to live sites because they think they're going to go through some bug bounty using the skills naturally, because they don't have a framework of experience that you've got your career?
Can I have the TLDR on this question, because I need to repeat it in a second. TLDR are kids that should kids do bug bounties? Maybe. But in terms of the kind of longer answer is, I'd say if they've got the skill set, the the problem with some bug bounty platforms is they're limited by age, so you need to be a minimum of 18 years old. So some companies won't pay you if you're under 18. Don't know why. I mean, anyone should be able to make money, but tax and stuff. Don't know. But essentially, to answer your question, I don't know. I don't know if kids should be retrained or funneled into, because you're right, the education system is fucked in this country. That they are taking steps to improve it. Since I started in the industry, when I first graduated all those years ago, 8 years ago or something. I know I'm young. You guys probably graduated like a century ago, but hey, sorry if I've offended anyone. There's more and more security programs out there. Like there's things like Cyber First. There's like Cybersecurity Challenge. There's more college courses and uni courses, and even in Scotland, happened in Scotland first. England decided they liked it, but in Scotland there is a higher. So from like the age of 15 or 16, you can do a higher in ethical hacking. There's now a GCSE, I think, because England went, oh, that's a fucking good idea, let's do that. And then nobody gave Scotland any credit because nobody likes Scotland. That's another reason. Anyway, independence, you know. Sorry. But yeah, does that answer your question, sort of? No.
It's just obviously, I've changed your position where I've a lot of independent advice. I've come across kids already who said, I hack shit at the moment, it's illegal. Show the legal side of it, what can I do? So I'm pointing towards the cybersecurity side first. And actually, come back to technical and do all this stuff, this multi stuff, show me interesting. So I'm saying,
teach them about scope. If they understand, if you can get people who've got the skill set, if you get people who've got the skill set and they understand how scope works. If you go out of scope, the NCA come in your door and ruin your life. If you stay in scope, they don't ruin your life. They pay you some money, and when you're old enough, you can drive and buy nice cars. Like there's people I know who are driving like Skylines at the age of like 18.
you just want to be a bit short.
Well, I mean, if you earn enough money, you can. You buy a Skyline for 20 grand, pay 20 grand in insurance. Any other questions, queries, complaints?
Yeah, looking at the big books, sort of book bounties and stuff like that, how do you go about making that sort of cash consistently? So do you go for the programs that pay out the big bucks, find the target products that are in scope for that,
yeah,
and just have that until you find something?
So the question is, how do you consistently make fuck tons of cash? Essentially, there's no foolproof way of doing it, but in terms of my methodology, I tend to look at programs that are, one, mature, so are likely to understand what bug classes are, and two, have a good pay table. So like the minimum payout, probably $500 is what I'd look at. There are some airlines that have got, like they'll pay you air miles, they'll give you 1 million air miles, which in the States, not in the UK, but in the States you need to pay tax on. So if you have 1 million air miles, they'll tax you however much that is in real money. In the UK it's fine, so let's do it in the UK, guys.
Snapchat have a good program.
Yeah, Snapchat have got a good program. Facebook have got a good program. Google have also got a pretty good program. Who else have got a good program? Pornhub have got a good program, but that's only if you're over the age of 18. So it's also quite distracting sometimes. Yahoo have got a good one as well. They've restructured people. Yeah.
Would you say it's, for someone trying to look into getting into this, is it more likely to go for a smaller company where someone might not have looked at their bug bounty program as much?
Nope.
Or a larger company would have more sort of online facing services and sort of points where you can actually...
I'd say go after big... Personally speaking, I go after big scopes because using enough recon, you sometimes find things that other researchers have looked over thousands of times, but you find the little kind of silver bullet that you... Like the one I found recently with that payment card. That program has been looked at to death by I think they've got like over 2,000 solved reports. So they've had lots of people looking at it. I found this by triggering lots of different bits and pieces. So it's by doing effective recon and effective enumerations when you can find bugs that you might not think you could. And at the end of the day, it's about Googling things. Like what I do in a day job, and it's what I do in bug bounties. If you find a bug class you're not sure about, Google it, go and read about it, and then try and apply it back. And I've come to the point that if I find a bug that looks really interesting, I'll stand up an instance of it. So if I find like Oracle middleware, for example, I've got Oracle VMs that I'll stand up and try things against first, find out where the paths are, build a word list, then go and fire it off against the target. So you're enumerating and finding stuff. It's down to research. The more time you invest, you like perfect practice makes perfect. It's a thing that Bruce Lee said. Not practice makes practice makes perfect. You can practice things shit 1,000,000 times and you'll be great at doing it shitly. But if you practice doing it well, you'll get good at doing it well. That's the mentality I applied to martial arts as well. If you practice really well at punching really shit, you'll have a broken hand for ages. If you practice really well at this, people have broken faces. It's the way. Don't go punching people, but it's the... Yeah. Anyone else? Well, we're dead now anyway. But if anyone's got any questions, ping me on Twitter. Come and find me afterwards. Yeah, I'm not Dave. Thanks for listening.